So we've gathered here tonight, December 17th, a few days before the calendar actually marks the longest night of the year. December 21st is recognized as that turning point when the night stretches to its fullest length. Yet here we are, entering this space a little earlier, holding a quiet vigil of sorts. We come, some of us carrying heavy hearts, wounded spirits, and tender memories. It is a blue Christmas gathering, a time when we acknowledge that not all is merry and bright during this season. This year, life in St. Pete has felt more tenuous. A series of hurricanes ripped through our sense of security, leaving behind not only physical damage, but emotional and spiritual wounds as well. Homes were battered by relentless winds, neighborhoods were flooded, and belongings were lost. For some, a precious sense of safety and normalcy has been permanently altered. The trauma of those storms lingers. The sound of howling winds, the dread of a weather forecast, the anxiety rising with every gust of tropical wind that rushes through the trees. Some among us are still navigating insurance claims and repairs and making sense of what's happened. Others mourn loved ones lost, whether physically or emotionally estranged in the stressful aftermath of the storms. Still others are grappling with spiritual questions. Where was God as the waters rose and the shutters rattled? So tonight we name these pains in a season that often demands celebration. Here in this quiet space, we give ourselves permission to acknowledge the sorrow and the trauma. The longest night symbolically is a time when darkness seems to conquer the day. This can be a powerful metaphor for grief and pain. When we are in the midst of suffering, it can feel like the light has receded and darkness dominates. We might feel isolated, misunderstood, or weary. The world around us seems caught up in holiday cheer, the music, the decorations, the relentless call to be happy or merry, while our hearts ache quietly. It's easy to feel out of sync, as if we are moving through a different season altogether from the rest of the world. Yet we remember that even the longest night does not last forever. Amen? Slowly, imperceptibly, the light begins its return. This truth does not rush our grief. No one can say exactly when we will feel brighter inside. But it does whisper a gentle hope. It whispers a gentle hope that darkness is not absolute or final. Although Christmas often arrives wrapped in glitter and tinsel, the original story of Jesus' birth is not without hardship and uncertainty. Mary and Joseph traveled far from home under an imperial decree. The stable where Christ was born was not a place of comfort or luxury, but it was a borrowed space where animals were fed. Shepherds, the outsiders, lowly in status, were among the first to hear the good news. And then later, the Holy Family would flee as refugees to escape violence. And from its beginning, the Christmas narrative knows something of trouble, fear, and the pain of displacement. This means our own experiences of vulnerability, loss, and trauma can find a place in this story, in this season. Jesus enters not a perfect and peaceful world, but a fragile and uncertain one, like the one that we know all too well right here in our own neighborhood. Emmanuel, God with us. Emmanuel appears in the midst of our turmoil, not apart from it. God doesn't wait for everything to be calm and bright before arriving. Instead, divine love enters the chaos, holds our fear, and stays beside us as we tremble and weep. In our faith tradition, lament is allowed, even encouraged. The Psalms and the Scriptures are filled with cries of anguish and desperate questions. These ancient prayers give us permission to speak from the depth of our pain. How long, O Lord? Where are you? Why do we suffer? Our cries do not push God away. Instead, they invite us into an honest relationship where we trust God enough to bring our rawest emotions, our unanswered questions. As we think back to the hurricanes and all the things that come together for us to be in this place, in this blue Christmas place, it's natural to feel angry or scared or weary. We may be tired of putting on a brave face. So tonight, I give us permission to set aside our masks. We can rest in God's presence as we truly are, holding our sorrow with open hands. In this holy honesty, we often discover that God is not distant, but present, ready to share our burden and to grieve right alongside us. Though we are honest about the hurt, we also look for signs of hope in the wreckage. After the storms, neighbors helped neighbors. Strangers shared resources. The community rallied to clear debris and offer meals, listen to stories, and to provide support. These acts of kindness, however small, are flickers of light in dark times. They remind us that goodness persists, that we can care for one another, and that life can slowly be rebuilt. In lighting a candle or simply sitting together, we make space for hope. We make space for hope even if our hope is just a fragile ember. Even if we don't feel particularly strong, or our presence here testifies that we believe in something beyond darkness. We trust that God's love abides, even when we cannot see it clearly. We acknowledge that the longest night, literal or figurative, is a season to be honored, not to be rushed through. Grief and trauma do not vanish overnight. Healing often takes time and gentle attention. Yet we also hold on to the knowledge that light will return. The days will lengthen inch by inch. In the months ahead, we will see the sun linger a little bit longer, the shadows shorten, and perhaps in time, we'll notice our spirits shifting as well. The birth of Christ is a reminder that God's love enters precisely where things seem bleak. This child, born into humble surroundings, grew to be someone who comforted the brokenhearted, stood with the downtrodden, and promised rest for the weary. In Jesus, we see that God is not afraid of the dark places of our world or within our souls. This divine presence accompanies us through the storms of life, through the longest night, and into the promise of a new day. Tonight, we don't force ourselves to be merry. Instead, we grant ourselves permission to feel whatever we feel. Grief, exhaustion, anxiety, longing. And we offer these things to the Christ who understands them, the Christ who shares them, and the Christ who gently holds us as we wait for the light. We do so a few days before the actual longest night because grief does not follow a schedule, and healing cannot be confined to a date on the calendar. As we leave this time together tonight, may we carry within us a spark of hope. May we know that we are not alone in our sorrow, that God's love endures even during the darkest hours. We see that God is with us, and our community is with us. May we trust that light, however distant. May we trust that it's on its way, and that in the story of Christmas, there is room for an entire human experience, including the pain we have carried through this challenging year. Amen.